Welcome to the Modise Network. South Africans are going to participate in the 6th national and provincial elections on the 8th of May. Voting is an important feature and procedure of democracy. With dozens of parties registered to contest these elections, it is the time when political parties, in a free atmosphere, ask for the mandate from the electorate to govern the country. It is a very important event that requires citizens who qualify to express their wishes of who should run the country or who should represent them in Parliament. Later in the show, we'll be speaking to prominent judge and expert Dennis Davis on the South African Revenue Services situation following the Nugent inquiry recommendations. Former Commissioner Tom Moyani was accused of dismantling an efficient system which led to SARS under-collecting and to VAT being increased to 15%. And what is the situation right now? And that is the question we'll be asking later on. But first, we focus on the elections. I'm joined by the Chief Electoral Officer of the IEC, Mr. Sy Mamabolo, to discuss the upcoming elections. And you too can join us in the conversation using the hashtag the Modise Network. We welcome your comments. Dr. Mamabolo, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, the last time I checked, there were hundreds of political parties that had indicated a willingness to take part in the 8th of May elections, but you whittled the number to what, to 48 now?
It is 48.
Yeah, just tell me how do you go about registering with yourselves up to this point of 48 parties?
Well, there are two distinct processes. The first is to register as a party. You need to publicize your logo, acronyms, and so on in the government gazette, and then submit your application to the IEC. It costs, there's a fee of 500 rands. That's the first part. You are registered at a party and your details are kept on the register of parties. When an election is called, following that, an election timetable is issued, which then say by a date nomination documents must be in. So the 48 that we announced are those that have been able to submit their nomination documents together with the prescribed deposits. So on the national ballot for this election, there will be 48 parties.
All right. So their deposits would be what, 500 rands? Is that what it takes to contest the elections?
No, the 500 rands is a registration fee.
Okay.
The election deposit for the elections of the National Assembly is 200,000. And for a provincial legislature, it's 45,000.
So, as matters stand, then those 48 parties registered paying 200,000 for the national elections, and at provincial level, they would have paid 45,000. Okay, well, that's a large number of parties, though. That's why I'm asking you about the amounts, you see, because it might be that it's cheap to participate in the elections, or it's because people believe that they stand for issues that will resonate with the public. What is your view?
Our view is the following, that we do welcome this heightened number of parties who have enlisted to participate in these elections. We believe that parties are in fact a mechanism of participation in the political life of the country. So this offers a broad section of people new ideas, a broad section of people a lot of political philosophy that they may or may not support. So the choice is broad and big. Nonetheless, whilst we welcome this number of parties, we also accept that it does present certain challenges. Firstly, the size of the ballot paper is going to be extraordinarily long. So people may have difficulties, manipulating and working with a longer than usual ballot paper. But secondly, our ballot boxes will fill quite often because a longer ballot paper will occupy the volume within the ballot box fairly quickly. So we do now need to increase the number of ballot boxes that we provide to voting station. But these are exciting times. Yesterday we had a ballot draw. In other words, we determined the sequence of political parties on the ballot paper. And with that done, we now are in a position to commence the ballot production process. We're printing over 50 million ballot papers in a period of 14 days. And those must be packaged per voting station. And we need to ensure that correct quantities and correct consignments reach correct voting stations on election day.
Well, it's quite a mission, and I think it's the first time, from my recollection, that you have such a huge number of political parties contesting the national elections. But as for the IEC itself, how are you funded and how do you operate?
We are a constitutional body, independent. We report to Parliament. We do not report to the executive arm of government. In other words, we don't report to government, but we report to Parliament as the representative body of all South Africans. We are funded through the national fiscus, in other words, national treasury. Like other state institutions, we are funded on a multi-term expenditure framework basis, and we get an allocation over 3 years. Obviously, we don't always get the totality of that which we require. As you know, the economy is not doing well, the fiscus is constrained and so on. But we do have enough resources to give the country a decent election.
Well, democracy is relatively expensive, so what is your budget? So we have a perspective of the amount of work that you do and the amount of money that is required.
In this financial year, which is coming to an end on the 31st of March, our budget is 1.9 billion.
1.9 billion rands.
Yeah.
And when we talk elections, it's not only the national provincial elections, you run a whole variety of elections in between, right? I mean, the municipal elections and other elections. Tell me more. Inclusive
in that figure are costs related to running by-elections. Every month we have a by-election. In fact, the number has been escalating. I think in one financial year we ran close to 100 by-elections, which happen within municipal councils, and casual vacancies arise and they need to be filled via by-elections. So that money goes there too.
Okay, well, we have to, I will be talking about the citizens' interest in the elections and what is required of them. There's a new law that has got to do with political party funding. Are you monitoring that? And if you can explain what your responsibilities are in monitoring political party funding.
The Political Parties Funding Act was signed into law by the President of the Republic on the 22nd of January this year. It has not come into operation yet. As the IEC, on the 1st of March, we published draft regulations inviting members of the public, interested parties to make comments. That period of comments closes tomorrow, the 21st of March. We will evaluate those submissions and then publish final regulations with a view that the Act will be operational from the 1st of April this year. Now, there are a number of architectural features of the new Political Parties Funding Act. Firstly, is that there's a representative political parties fund, which is resourced from the national fiscus. In other words, parties who have a representation in Parliament as well as in provincial legislatures will get an allocation which will be paid in 4 tranches, 4 equal tranches every quarter. Then the second feature is the Multi-Party Democracy Fund. That fund hopefully will be resourced by corporates, by foundations, by private individuals, but it will also be dispersed to parties who hold seats in the National Assembly as well as in provincial legislatures. The third aspect of the architecture of the Act is the regulation of private funding. For the first time, South Africa now has a regulatory framework for private funding of political parties. every donation to a party which is over 100,000 rands must be disclosed to the Commission by both the donating person or party or company, as well as the political party concerned. And on a quarterly basis, the IEC will issue a report to say these people have funded this party, and so on and so on. And then there's certain prohibitions that foreign governments should not fund South African parties. I think that's quite important because we do not want foreign imperatives to influence the conduct of politics in the country. And it's a matter that goes to the heart of our sovereignty as a people, our sovereignty as a country.
But what about foreign companies then? Can they make donations?
No, they are also subject to the same restrictions. The only foreign funding that is permitted in terms of the Act is that which is given to parties for policy development and cultivating participation of people in their political programs and so on. So a further prohibition is that no one, either internal or external, may fund a party to a tune of over 15 million in any 1 year.
Okay, so the minimum is 100,000 that must be disclosed.
Correct.
And no individual or company may fund a party for more than 15 million
that is
in
correct.
A particular financial year.
That is correct.
Now, in terms of the internal political party work, right, political education and that type of thing, are there any restrictions or requirements of how that kind of work is conducted and funded?
Well, as I indicate, some foreign funding will be possible for purposes of policy development, cultivating participation within the party, political education, and so on. So foreign funding is limited to those types of activities, but again, subject to the thresholds, the financial thresholds that I've just outlined. But I think this gives us, it reshapes the funding landscape in the country. It's the beginning, it's not ideal, but I think it gives us something to start with, and it's part of our evolution as a democracy, our evolution as a democratic dispensation. We will need to look at it, to review it on a constant basis so as to strengthen the regulatory framework, and we'll do that with time.
All right, and probably it will cut out whatever suspected corruption may have been taking place where local governments, it is suspected, were funding political parties. Are they allowed to, though?
No, they're not. The public funding to political parties will be limited through the represented political parties fund. No other funding unless that which is authorized in terms of the Constitution, where parties get some parliamentary allocations and so on. But those are sanctioned in terms of the Constitution. Local government is debarred in terms of this law, to disperse any funding to political parties.
Sy Mamabolo is the Chief Electoral Officer. He's with the Independent Electoral Commission. We're looking at the mechanics of running the elections, the requirements, the funding, and we'll also be looking at the dispute resolution mechanisms that they have in place. Don't go away. We'll be looking at that subject in a moment.